Picture the pool of Bethesda on a Tuesday afternoon, roughly 2,000 years ago. The sun is beating down on Jerusalem, and there is a man lying on a mat who has not walked in 38 years. His muscles have atrophied, his joints have locked, his nervous system has learned helplessness so thoroughly that it has become his identity. And then Jesus walks up to him and says something that scholars have misunderstood for 2 millennia. He does not say, "Do you believe I can heal you?" He does not ask about faith. He does not request prayer. He asks one simple question: do you want to be made well? And in that question lies a biological principle that modern neuroscience is only beginning to understand. A principle about how the human body creates chronic conditions not because of disease but because of adaptation. A principle that has nothing to do with spirituality and everything to do with survival biology. Before I go any further, subscribe to this channel right now, because what you are about to learn will completely change how you understand healing, illness, and why some people remain stuck in conditions that seemingly have no medical explanation. The man at Bethesda answers Jesus with an excuse. He says, "I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up and while I am going another steps down before me." Notice what he does not say. He does not say yes. He does not say, "Absolutely, I want to be healed." He explains why healing is impossible. He has spent 38 years constructing a narrative about why he cannot get better, and his body has been listening to that narrative every single day. This is not a metaphor, this is biology. Your brain does not distinguish between a physical threat and a believed narrative. When you tell yourself a story repeatedly, when you rehearse it, when you feel the emotions attached to it, your nervous system responds as if that story is objective reality. The man at Bethesda had built an entire identity around being the man who cannot walk. His social position depended on it. His relationships were structured around it. People knew him as the invalid by the pool, and his body, in perfect cooperation with his belief system, had organized itself to fulfill that identity. Let me take you into the neuroscience of what actually happened to this man over 38 years. When a muscle is not used, the brain begins pruning the neural pathways that control it. This is called synaptic pruning. The brain operates on efficiency. If you are not using a connection, the brain interprets that as permission to dismantle it and allocate resources elsewhere. After weeks of disuse, the motor cortex regions responsible for walking begin to shrink. After months, the cerebellum stops maintaining balance programs. After years, the entire kinesthetic map of how to walk gets archived into deep storage, almost inaccessible without intentional intervention. But it gets worse, because the body does not just forget how to walk, it learns how not to walk. The fascia, the connective tissue that wraps every muscle, begins to bind and thicken in positions of stillness. The joints develop contractures, where the soft tissue literally shortens and restricts range of motion. The bones themselves start to demineralize because weight-bearing activity is what signals the body to maintain bone density. And at the mitochondrial level, the cells stop producing energy for movement because there is no demand. This man was not sick in the way we think of sickness. He was adapted. His entire biological system had adapted to a life of immobility so completely that walking was not just difficult, it was physiologically improbable without massive systemic intervention. And here's the key that almost everyone misses. Jesus did not ask him about faith because faith was irrelevant to the biology. Faith is what you need when you are asking an external power to intervene. But Jesus was not interested in external intervention. He was interested in activating something that had been dormant inside the man himself. The question, "Do you want to be made well?" was not pastoral. It was diagnostic. Jesus was testing whether the man had any genuine desire for change, or whether he had become so fused with his condition that healing would actually represent a threat to his identity. Think about that for a moment. Healing as a threat. It sounds absurd until you understand secondary gain. Secondary gain is a psychological and biological principle where a person derives benefit from being ill or disabled. These benefits are not imagined, they are real. The man at Bethesda did not have to work. He received charity. He had a community of other invalids who understood him. He had a role, a place, a reason for people to notice him. If he suddenly got up and walked, all of that would disappear. He would be expected to provide for himself. He would lose the identity that had defined him for nearly 4 decades. He would have to face the terror of building a completely new life with no preparation. And his nervous system knew this. At a subconscious level, his body was protecting him from the danger of healing by maintaining the very condition that kept him safe. This is why Jesus had to ask the question. Because without genuine desire, without the willingness to let go of the secondary gains, no healing intervention in the world would produce lasting change. The body will always return to the state it believes is safest. Now watch what Jesus does next. He does not pray over the man. He does not perform a ritual. He does not call down divine power. He gives a command. Get up, take up your bed, and walk. 3 actions. Each one precisely designed to interrupt the biological pattern that had been running for 38 years. The first command is get up. This is a postural reset. The moment the man even attempts to shift his body from horizontal to vertical, he is activating proprioceptors, sensory receptors in the muscles and joints that tell the brain where the body is in space. These receptors have been silent for decades. By firing them, Jesus is waking up neural circuits that have been offline. The second command is take up your bed. This is a functional load. Picking up the mat requires grip strength, core activation, and coordination between upper and lower body. It forces the brain to recruit muscle fibers that have not been used in years. It creates a demand that the nervous system must meet. The third command is walk. This is full integration. Walking requires rhythm, balance, motor planning, and real-time sensory feedback. It is one of the most complex activities the human nervous system performs. By commanding the man to walk, Jesus is essentially telling the brain, rebuild the entire motor program right now. And here is what makes this moment so staggering. The man does it. He does not try, he does not hesitate, he does not test one leg and then the other. He gets up, picks up his mat and walks immediately. What happened in his body in that instant? His brain received a command that overrode 38 years of learned helplessness. That command came with such authority, such certainty, that his nervous system did not have time to argue. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive decision-making, bypassed the fear circuits in the amygdala. The motor cortex sent signals down the spinal cord to muscles that had been dormant. The muscles, despite atrophy, responded because muscle memory is stored not just in the muscles but in the spinal cord itself. The fascia, which had been locked, released under the sudden demand for movement. The joints, which had been frozen, found just enough range of motion to allow the first steps. And the mitochondria inside his cells surged with energy production because the body was finally receiving a signal it recognized, a signal that said, "We are moving now, produce energy." But this is where it gets even more interesting, because the healing was not actually miraculous in the supernatural sense, it was miraculous in the biological sense. Everything the man needed to walk had always been inside him. The neural circuits were dormant, not destroyed. The muscles were atrophied, not dead. The fascia was bound, not severed. The joints were stiff, not fused. The entire system was in standby mode, waiting for a command strong enough to override the program of immobility. And Jesus knew this. He did not heal the man, he activated the man. He gave him a command that the man's own body was capable of fulfilling if the belief system that had been holding it hostage could be interrupted for just one moment. Now let me take you even deeper. Modern research into neuroplasticity has discovered something astonishing. The brain can rewire itself at any age. For decades, scientists believed that after childhood the brain was fixed, that neural pathways were permanent. But studies over the last 20 years have proven that the brain remains plastic, adaptable, capable of forming new connections throughout life. Stroke patients who have lost the ability to speak or move have recovered function by retraining their brains. People with chronic pain have eliminated their pain by changing the neural patterns that produce it. Individuals with trauma-based disorders have healed by creating new pathways that bypass the old fear responses. The key in every case is the same: a signal strong enough to interrupt the existing pattern and a repetition consistent enough to build a new one. Jesus gave the man at Bethesda the interruption. The command was the signal, but what sustained the healing was what happened next. The man had to keep walking. He had to keep using the neural pathways that had just been reactivated. If he had gotten up, taken 2 steps, and then laid back down out of fear or doubt, the pathways would have gone dormant again. The fascia would have rebound. The muscles would have reatrophied. But he did not stop. He picked up his mat and walked. And every step he took was reinforcing the new pattern, telling his brain, this is who we are now. We are someone who walks. This is the part that almost every sermon, every Bible study, every theological discussion completely misses. The healing was not a one-time supernatural event. It was the activation of a biological process that the man himself had to sustain through action. Jesus did not do the walking for him. Jesus gave him the command that made walking possible, and the man did the rest. And this has everything to do with you. Right now in your own body, there are systems that have gone dormant. There are abilities you once had that you have not used in so long that your brain has archived them. There are emotional responses that have become so automatic that you do not even realize they are learned patterns and not fixed traits. There are physical conditions that you have been told are permanent, but which are actually adaptations to beliefs and behaviors that can be changed. The question Jesus asked the man at Bethesda is the same question your body is asking you right now. Do you want to be made well? Not, do you wish things were different? Not, do you hope someday something changes? But do you actually want to be well? Because if you do, it will require letting go of the identity you have built around your condition. It will require releasing the secondary gains. It will require facing the uncertainty of a new version of yourself that you have never met. And your nervous system is going to resist, not because it hates you, but because it is trying to keep you safe. Safety to the nervous system does not mean health, it means predictability. It means the known, even if the known is suffering. The man at Bethesda was safer as an invalid. He knew how to be an invalid. He had 38 years of practice. Getting up and walking meant entering unknown territory, and the nervous system interprets the unknown as danger. This is why so many people self-sabotage right at the edge of breakthrough. This is why people return to toxic relationships, destructive habits, and limiting beliefs even after they have tasted freedom. The nervous system pulls them back to the familiar because familiar equals safe, even when familiar is slowly killing them. But here is the truth that will set you free if you let it. Your body is not broken, your body is adapted, and anything that has been adapted can be readapted. The neural pathways can be rebuilt, the fascia can be released, the muscles can be reactivated, the mitochondria can be re-energized. The entire system can be brought back online if you are willing to do what the man at Bethesda did: respond to the command. What is the command for you? It is not going to come from Jesus walking up to you by a pool. It is going to come from the deepest part of yourself, the part that knows you are capable of more than the story you have been telling. The command might be, get out of bed even though you feel exhausted. It might be, have the conversation you have been avoiding. It might be, stop eating the food that makes you feel terrible. It might be, end the relationship that is draining your life force. It might be, start the project you have been putting off for years. Whatever it is, you already know what it is. And your body is waiting for you to give the command with enough authority that your nervous system has no choice but to obey. Let me tell you what happens biologically when you give that command. First, the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain that detects conflict between your current state and your desired state, lights up. This is the part that says, something has to change. Then the prefrontal cortex, your executive function center, begins to override the automatic programs running in the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is where habits live, where the automatic behaviors are stored. When you give a command with intention, the prefrontal cortex can actually inhibit those automatic programs and create space for a new choice. Next, the motor cortex sends signals to the muscles. Even if those muscles are weak, even if the movement feels awkward, the signal itself begins the process of reactivation. The muscles respond by producing proteins that strengthen the fibers. The fascia begins to release adhesions as it is moved through new ranges of motion. The mitochondria inside the cells increase ATP production because there is suddenly a demand for energy. The cardiovascular system increases blood flow to the areas being used, delivering oxygen and nutrients that support the new activity. And the brain, in response to all of this, begins to form new synaptic connections. These connections are fragile at first. This is why the first time you do something new, it feels hard, clumsy, and uncertain. But if you repeat the action, the connections strengthen. The myelin sheath, the insulation around the nerve fibers, thickens, making the signal faster and more efficient. And eventually, the new behavior becomes automatic. It becomes the new normal. This is not magic. This is biology. This is the same process that allowed the man at Bethesda to walk after 38 years. And it is available to you right now. But you have to answer the question, do you want to be made well? If the answer is yes, truly yes, then comment the words, I am ready to activate right now. Not for me, for you. Let that declaration be the first signal to your nervous system that the old program is ending and a new one is beginning. Here is what you need to understand about the pool of Bethesda itself. There was a belief that an angel would come and stir the water, and the first person to get into the pool after the stirring would be healed. This is important. The entire system was designed around competition and scarcity. Only one person could be healed. Everyone else would remain sick. This belief structure kept people trapped, because if healing depends on being first and you are paralyzed, you have already lost. You can never be fast enough. The game is rigged against you from the start. And this is exactly how the world teaches you to think about healing, success, and transformation. It tells you there is not enough. It tells you that you have to compete. It tells you that if you are not fast enough, strong enough, or connected enough, you will be left behind. And your nervous system, hearing this message, makes a calculation. If I cannot win, why try? If healing is not available to me, I might as well adapt to being sick. This is learned helplessness at the societal level. But Jesus did not tell the man to get into the pool. He did not tell him to wait for the angel. He did not tell him to compete with anyone. He bypassed the entire system and went directly to the man's own capacity. This is the revolution. Healing is not scarce. Transformation is not a competition. The power to change is not outside you, waiting for the right moment or the right opportunity. It is inside you, waiting for the command. The man at Bethesda thought he needed someone to put him in the pool. Jesus showed him he did not need the pool at all. What are you waiting for? What pool are you sitting beside, believing that if you could just get into it at the right time, everything would change? What system are you waiting to validate you, to choose you, to give you permission? And what would happen if you stood up right now and walked away from the pool entirely? This is not about faith. This is about decision. This is about the biological reality that your body will do what you command it to do if the command is given with enough clarity and conviction that the nervous system cannot ignore it. Faith is hoping someone else will intervene. Decision is intervening yourself. Let me give you the exact process. First, identify the condition. What is the thing in your life that has become your identity? What is the limitation you have explained so many times that the explanation has become more real than the possibility of change? For the man at Bethesda, it was 38 years of paralysis. For you, it might be anxiety, chronic pain, financial struggle, relational patterns, creative blocks, or emotional numbness. Name it clearly. Second, recognize the secondary gain. What are you getting from this condition? This is the hardest part because no one wants to admit they are benefiting from their suffering. But you are. Maybe it is sympathy. Maybe it is the excuse not to take risks. Maybe it is the identity of being the wounded one, the struggling one, the one who has it harder than everyone else. Whatever it is, you have to see it, because until you see it, you cannot release it. Third, give the command, not a wish, not a hope, a command. Say it out loud. I am getting up. I am releasing this. I am walking into the new version of my life. Your voice carries vibration. That vibration impacts your nervous system. When you speak a command, you are not just thinking it, you are encoding it into your body through sound. Fourth, take the first action immediately. Do not wait, do not plan, do not prepare. The man did not ask for a physical therapist. He did not request a transition plan. He got up. You have to move while the command is still vibrating in your system. If you wait, the old program will reassert itself. The doubt will come, the fear will come, the excuses will come. Move before they arrive. Fifth, sustain through repetition. The first action interrupts the pattern. The repeated action builds the new one. You have to keep walking. You have to keep choosing the new behavior even when it feels unnatural, even when the old pattern tries to pull you back. Every repetition strengthens the new neural pathway. Every repetition tells your body, this is who we are now. The man at Bethesda walked out of that place carrying his mat. He did not leave the mat behind, he took it with him. That mat was the symbol of his old identity, and he carried it not as a burden but as proof. Proof that he was no longer the man who lay on it. Proof that the past did not define the present. Proof that what seemed permanent was actually temporary. What is your mat? What is the thing you need to pick up and carry, not to remain attached to it, but to prove to yourself that it no longer controls you? This teaching will never be popular, because it removes the excuse. It removes the option to wait for someone else to fix you. It puts the responsibility exactly where it has always been, with you. And most people do not want that responsibility. Most people would rather believe they are victims of circumstances beyond their control. But you are not most people. You are still here, you are still reading. Something in you knows that you are capable of more than the story you have been living. Subscribe to this channel if you want more teachings that bypass the comfort of victimhood and go straight to the biology of transformation. Like this video so others who are ready can find it. And comment below with the one condition you are ready to stop adapting to and start transforming. The man at Bethesda had been lying by that pool for 38 years. 38 years of waiting. 38 years of hopping. 38 years of watching other people get what he wanted while he stayed stuck. And in one moment, with one command, everything changed, not because a miracle happened, but because he finally responded to the question, do you want to be made well? Your body is asking you that question right now, and your answer will determine everything that happens next. The fascinating thing about this moment is that it happened in public. There were other invalids by that pool, dozens of people in the same condition with the same access to the same water, the same belief in the same angel. But only one man got up and walked. Why? Because only one man answered the question differently. Only one man decided that the risk of change was worth the cost of staying the same. And here's what nobody talks about. The other people at the pool probably thought he was crazy. They probably watched him get up and thought, he's making a mistake, he's not ready, he does not know what he is doing. Fear always looks like wisdom to the people who are still afraid, and your nervous system will surround you with voices that sound like protection but are actually just echoes of their own terror. This is why you cannot wait for permission. This is why you cannot wait for consensus. This is why you cannot wait for everyone around you to be ready, because they will never be ready. Their readiness is not your responsibility, your activation is. Think about what the man had to endure immediately after that healing. He had to walk through Jerusalem carrying his mat. Everyone who knew him saw him walking. Everyone who had defined him as the invalid now had to process a completely different reality. Some of them probably felt angry, some felt envious, some felt left behind, and he had to keep walking anyway. He had to keep choosing the new identity even while the old world tried to pull him back into the old role. This is the price of transformation that nobody warns you about. When you change, the people around you do not automatically change with you. The system that benefited from your limitation does not cheer your expansion. Your family members who were comfortable with your helplessness may unconsciously sabotage your progress. Your friends who bonded with you over shared struggles may distance themselves when you are no longer struggling. This is not personal, it is systemic. It is how nervous systems protect themselves, but you have to keep walking anyway. The man at Bethesda did not get healed and then stop growing. The healing was the beginning, not the end. After he could walk, he had to learn how to live. He had to build muscle through use. He had to develop balance through practice. He had to discover what his body was capable of when it was no longer limited by his belief system. And this is where most people falter. They get the initial breakthrough, they feel the relief, and then they plateau. They do not understand that activation is not the same as integration. Getting up is one moment, Walking is the process that comes after, and the process is where real transformation happens. It is unglamorous, it is repetitive, it is filled with soreness and setbacks and moments where you wonder if you were better off before. But it is also where your nervous system is learning its new normal. It is where your body is reorganizing around a new identity. It is where you stop being someone who had an experience of healing and start being someone who is healed. Your nervous system does not trust change that happens too fast. It interprets sudden transformation as a threat because the system is designed to be conservative. It prefers gradual shifts that it can track and process. So after you give the command and take the first action, your body will try to pull you back to the familiar. This is called the homeostatic impulse. It is not weakness. It is your nervous system trying to do its job, which is to maintain stability. But stability and growth are fundamentally incompatible. You cannot expand and remain the same. You cannot become more and hold onto what you were. So you have to consciously override the homeostatic impulse again and again until the new state becomes the new normal. Until your nervous system recognizes the expanded version of you as safe and stops trying to contract you back down. Here is something else that changes when you truly heal. Your relationship with pain shifts. Not the pain itself necessarily, but your relationship to it. The man at Bethesda probably experienced significant soreness in his muscles as they woke up from dormancy. The proprioceptors were firing for the first time in decades. The joints were moving through ranges they had not accessed in years. This would have been uncomfortable, but he did not interpret that discomfort as a signal that something was wrong. He interpreted it as a signal that something was being restored. This distinction is everything. The same sensation can mean one of two things depending on the framework you are holding. It can mean, my body is breaking down, or it can mean, my body is waking up. One framework leads to further contraction. One leads to continued expansion. You get to choose which framework you hold, but you have to choose it consciously because your default programming will interpret any discomfort as danger. The other invalids at the pool did not get up because they interpreted their pain, their weakness, and their limitation as permanent features of their reality rather than temporary adaptations that could be changed. And the saddest part is that they were probably right about their circumstances. The pool was real. The competition was real. The scarcity was real. The system that told them healing was impossible was a real system that had beaten down their hope for years. But what they could not see was that the system itself was the problem, not their bodies. Their bodies were perfectly capable of functioning. The system was designed to keep them dependent, and the only way out was to stop playing the game entirely, to stop waiting by the pool, to stop hopping for the angel, to stand up and walk away from the entire structure that had been designed to keep them in place. This is revolutionary because it is not what we are taught. We are taught that transformation requires external validation, that we need a therapist to heal us, a coach to motivate us, a system to organize us, a pill to fix us. And yes, these things can be helpful, but they are not the source. The source is always inside you. The healer, the teacher, the guide, the medicine, all of it is already in your body waiting for you to activate it. When the man at Bethesda got up and walked, the healing happened through his own movement, his own choice, his own nervous system reactivating its own capacities. And everything that happened after that was just him sustaining and deepening what he had initiated. This is the model for all real transformation. You activate, you sustain, you integrate, and you become. Subscribe now because this channel exists to teach you exactly how to do this in every area of your life. The pool of Bethesda is closed. It never actually healed anyone anyway.